So I'm here in the early morning hours at Logee's. I'm just here with also Byron and Laura Lynn, and they are preparing for our big field trip. So we're chartering a bus from New York City, and we also have some people who are driving in to come and do a nice VIP special event here, which we're going to have some propagation demos. Byron's going to be doing this really cool thing where we're going to be cutting down a banana tree afterwards, which is really neat. And we're also going to be doing a talk, a book signing for my book, How to Make a Plant Love You, and a bunch of other stuff. We even have like special sales of plants that they typically don't sell, or they have too many requests for them. So we have some of the people here that are going to have first dibs on some very cool, rare, hard to get your hands on plants. So we're going to be documenting this all day, and hopefully we'll get some cool stuff from the bus and the people coming in on the bus too, because when was the last time you did a field trip? I mean, probably like grade school or high school or something like that. So it should be a lot of fun, and can't wait for you to join us. Yeah, that's not like a small 35-person bus that I thought it was going to be. He's got to do like a K-turn. This is a big bus. All right, so we'll see how much of a trip that it was for them, because they've been on the bus for about 2.5 hours. I don't know, Laura Lynn's probably going to be like, that does not fit in our parking lot. It's a big bus! Welcome again, guys. Hi, how are you? Welcome. How was the bus ride?
It was good.
Yeah, it was good. Good. Yeah, good. It's a huge bus. I thought we were going to get something half the size. You had a lot of room to spread out on.
A lot of room.
Yeah, good. It looks like it said Wi-Fi on the side. Did you have Wi-Fi on the bus too?
We were so talking.
Okay, good. Okay, then that's good. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Guys, thank you so much for coming. I love it. I love it. This is so wonderful. This is like the first kind of like botanical excursion, like a field trip, which I think is always wonderful. And part of the things that we get to do with like Plant One On Me, and we were filming here, as Laura Lynn mentioned yesterday, we were filming a little bit of behind the scenes tour, which actually you all are going to get a chance to see, but it's part of some of the stuff that I like to do for Plant One On Me, and to kind of bring you know, botanical expeditions and botanical knowledge and passionate people like Byron onto kind of like the small screen or the big screen. I don't know what kind of screen you watch on it, but yeah, so it's been really marvelous, and to be able to have that experience together I think is really wonderful. We've had some kind of like personal experiences with the plant swaps. I'm sure many of you have already done some. If you didn't come to some of the New York City plant swaps, you might be having plant swaps in your states or your cities or wherever some of you are coming from. But I always just think it's really marvelous being able to meet people in person and have people have plant friends in real life. And I think the idea, even though I didn't come in on the bus, the idea was I always wanted to come to Logee's, and I don't really drive. So there wasn't many options in order to be able to get here, because you're kind of off the beaten path. So when I was chatting with Byron and Laura Lynn, I was like, what do you think about chartering a bus from New York City for those of us city slickers who would actually just like to come up and have that kind of experience? So hopefully you're going to have like a wonderful you know, moment here, because you know their greenhouses are really lovely, and Byron will tell you a little bit more about, you know, the history of this as well. But it's just really wonderful to be able to have growers like Logee's growing plants that typically you can't find in the market, and we really have to rely on people like Byron and his wonderful staff that he has here in order to be able to have some of these interesting plants that you've had for in some cases over a century.
Right. Yeah, we have some really old plants here.
Yeah.
Some of our older plants, the Ponderosa lemon, you'll see that on the tour, has been in the greenhouses since 1900. That was a time when greenhouses and indoor plants were, you know, developing. That was the beginning. That was sort of the heyday, I guess, of glass greenhouses. And my grandfather had a passion for plants like all of us do, and took the business on from there. And it's a pretty exciting place. I've been doing it for 45 years or so, and I'm still like really charged about it. Yeah. So, and I know you guys all have the same deal. Plants are really cool. So that's Logee's, and it's been a change over the years. You know, we set out as florists, and I remember as a young kid being amongst the adults as, you know, Valentine's Day came along, and I go, I'm never going to do that. It's like totally nuts. And I stopped. And when I was at the very end of the florist trade, and then plant collecting, which was in my grandfather's blood and in my mother's and father's blood and now in my blood, and it's all the same blood, actually is what Logee's is about. So Summer and I were in our R&D house, and I was pointing out all the new things that I'm doing, and you know, I just keep doing it. And the interesting thing about plants is and you probably all know this, is you focus on something and you get into it, and then after a while, like I got into orchids like totally out of control, right? I have a lab, and I was doing crosses and tissue culture, and I had orchids hanging all over the place. And then one day I just stopped, and I went into something else. I got into passion flowers and the angel's trumpets. And you know, I'm actually a hippie, even though I don't look like it, because I came out of the 70s. I have my long hair and my beard, and I'm a flower child, and so I really love. Because I grew up in this, so that everything was common, right? Even though it was really rare. And so, you know, my whole thing was to get more flowers, and I branched off, and I'm still doing stuff like that. So it's very cool. I'm glad you guys all are into it.
Yeah.
It's a very cool thing to do.
So the group's just separated up, and Byron is actually doing a talk on grafting and propagating with half of the group, and the other 30 members have broken up into 3 other groups and are touring some of the greenhouses. Now, most of these greenhouses are actually not open to the public, but we're going to go and do a little overview of some of those greenhouses not open to the public. And the first one is, we're going to start here in one of their production houses. So come inside. So this is really cool. We have to be mindful because there's misting that actually happens here, and this is obviously a working greenhouse. And you could see that they have lots of different plants that they are growing here, including, this looks like the begonia bench. So they have a lot of their begonias, both cane and Rex begonias, even some ones that look like little bonsais that are just so adorable with the little caudics on the bottom. So you could see from just looking at it from an expansive point of view that it's very lush. And we're just going to take a little walk around and see what other types of plants that they have. I spy a couple that are pretty rare that some folks will be very interested in. So you can see they have some leaf cuttings of their begonia, which is how they start a number of their begonias, and these are a little early on the production, and this is where they do a lot of the misting. So this is their mist bench, where some plants are taken from the mother plant and then they actually go to produce them here. If we go down this row, you see some vanillas, vanilla planifolias, and then some aschenanthus. And you'll see a host, a field, should I say, of Philodendron pink princess. So these are some of the plants that we'll have for sale today for some of the folks. And also Philodendron melanochrysums, which people absolutely love, but there's just not enough to go around. But they are gorgeous philodendrons. You can see they're often called black and gold. They look similar to Philodendron hederaceum, the one known as Philodendron micans, because of that kind of velvety sheen. Some more of their aschenanthus actually hanging right here. And if you look a little bit further up, you'll see that they hang a lot of their lemon plants on the drip lines. One of the beautiful Monster Deliciosa variegatas, and this is one that we are actually going to be giving away, not this specific one, but Monster Deliciosa variegata. We have a smaller one that we are doing a giveaway for at this event. Trimonias, I have one of these. I love how woody it gets. It's really interesting to be able to see it so woody. Primulinas with really big flowers. So this isn't a Gesneriaceae. This is not one that I've seen them selling, but this is Metanilla setifolia. Usually when you look at metanillas, they have really giant flowers and giant leaves, and this one is kind of like a diminutive one. And this is pretty amazing. Anthurium wenderlingii. This has the curly inflorescence right here, which is super neat. Look at the little corkscrew and the giant pendant-shaped leaves. I think that's probably more of their show plant because I've never seen them sell something like this. But you could get a sense of like just a little bit more of what they're growing, and they have such a diversity of plants. Here it looks like Hoyas, very well organized. Here they have like some Schomburgeras and some jungle cactus. And here they have some more of the special plants that we're actually going to be featuring and selling today, which is the variegated syngoniums, the Philodendron melicronyzums, the Hoya carrii variegata, and the Philodendron pink princess. So let's go out and see some more of their greenhouses. That's a little bit more of their perennial house. Let's go take a look in it because I really like the back of the area. Their perennials are kind of on the out because it's starting to get a little wintry. See some of their figs? These are some of their turkey figs right here. Some gardenias. But I just love this back area right here. I think it's so charming. That's one of the things, you know, this is such an old greenhouse, and of course, one of their old greenhouses is here from the 1900s, but you know, some of these are relatively new, but it still has that kind of charming working feel. So it's not like a perfect greenhouse with perfect edging, but it has a little bit more of that idyllic country feel. But let's go see what their other greenhouses hold. Let's see if we could get into their succulent house. Might be locked. Oh, no, it's open. So this is where they do a lot of their production of their succulent. It's already warmer in here. I know you can't actually feel the temperature, but I am letting you know that it's a bit warmer in here, a bit drier. I love looking under the bench. So if you see here, you have what looks like to be Kleinia fulgens or scarlet Kleinia. And then you have this kind of blooming onion right here underneath the bench. And a number of Crassulas, Kalanchoe, and some Sedums. And yeah, these are the things that they actually sell. So you'll see they have this whole middle area looks like it's just reserved for adeniums. And Adenium obesums are quite a popular plant in Thailand, and I think they actually get a lot of these in from Thailand. So there's all these different kinds of grafted cultivars. So you could tell it's grafted here. You could see kind of the cut in the incision. And grafting essentially means that you're taking an understock or a rootstock of a plant and putting a new one on top of it. And that could be for many different reasons. Sometimes if it's a variegated version of a plant, it doesn't have as strong of a rootstock, so having a stronger rootstock will help with like a little bit more of the energy. Sometimes you have something without any chlorophyll whatsoever, so it needs a healthier rootstock. Sometimes the rootstock is just not as good. And you'll see that some of these leaves are falling off, but that's normal because for adenium it's deciduous and it usually loses its leaves and its flowers during the winter months. Monodeniums, which I do believe have just got put back into Euphorbia, which is another type of genus. These are kind of funny squat plants. I recently picked up one of these from Logee's. I just really love the coloration of this. Anything kind of like that darker green black, I've been really attracted to. I guess I'm going through like a goth phase. So this is Oxypetalum, and you can see that they are just taking some cuttings here. So this is actually just one part of the phylloclade or one part of the stem that they did a cut, and it looks like they probably initialed who actually did the cutting. And then you could see that there is some new stems that are just emerging. So those are in production. And let's take a look under the bench here because we have some different species. This looks like a Senecio jacobensi, I think it's called, but it's kind of like this trailing Senecio. And this looks like another type of sedum, but I'm not quite sure what. But you can see just how prolific it is. And this one right here is, I love this one. I just took a couple cuttings of this the other day, Crassula mucosa, which is kind of like a nice trailing. It's called watch chain plant, I think, because it looks like a watch chain. And here's some more of that Kleinia. Oh, yeah, this is a better version of that Senecio, and you can see how it's actually trailing. And look at this, because you have probably some Hylocereus. This might be some dragon fruit that's actually clambering under here. And you can see how it's rooting along the edges. So wherever it's touching the soil, you start to see like roots coming out. I love under the bench plants. This is like some of the most exciting stuff, because they may not even be growing it in production above. It just is like seeds that had been here probably for years. It's a really fine looking Sedum burrito, which is a type of, it's called burro's tail. When you hit them, it's very easy for some of these leaves to fall off, but they could just propagate pretty readily. And here's some of their Christmas cacti. So these are their Schlumbergeras. They do a lot of different types of varieties of Schlumbergera. You'll see one that's actually in bloom right here. It's beautiful. And we're going to be doing a whole episode on care and propagation here, and also a little bit more of an in-depth tour of their cacti house as well, cacti and succulent house. So these are some of their plants that actually aren't in production yet, and they just have a mishmash of stuff here, so that doesn't have names, but you can tell that these are some Euphorbia. I have one that looks like this, but there's a number of species that actually look like this. Oh, this looks like a Kalanchoe. Look at the beautiful flower on that one. It's quite large. And then these are Euphorbia, probably Millii, and you can actually see the inflorescence is this little thing right here, and actually the red colorful part is actually the bracts, which are the things that are like kind of a modified leaf. It's actually not a petal, and that is used to attract the insects to come down and actually do pollination near the inflorescence. Another Euphorbia, this is called fire sticks or pencil cactus, even though it's not a cactus. And then this one looks like a weird version of Peperomia ferreyrae, which I don't know if that's the exact species, but a lot of Peperomia kind of look the same. And then this is a sunburst Opuntia. I can't think of the scientific name right now, the species name. I think it's called Coccinelia, probably from the cochineal bug. Some more jungle cactus. Lithops. Looks like some had bloomed recently. In the succulent tour that we did, we actually caught some of them blooming, and they probably bloom a little bit more towards the afternoon hours. And then this is called dancing bones, which is fun. You can see why they got their name. This is Saliconoides, Hatoria saliconoides, which is another type of jungle cactus. So let's go out to the next greenhouse and we'll see what else they have growing there. I'd like to go take a look at their herb house, because it's not something that we actually highlight in any of the other episodes, but they have a really beautiful herb house. I think it's this one right here. This one? Oh, I didn't even see it. It's kind of hidden. Herb house, duh. So this is a bit of a cooler house, and a lot of these herbs, I mean, in the case of like rosemary, is a Mediterranean species, including lavender as well. I just have to tell you, when you step into this house, it smells miraculous. I mean, it'll make you want to have an herb house. You see they have some geraniums, pelargoniums. I don't even know this one, Prostanthera rotundifolia, round leaf mint bush. They definitely have some weird varieties that that smells so good, that I'm not familiar with. Oh, wow, that definitely has a little bit of a menthol scent, but kind of like menthol and blueberries. Kind of strange to say that. Some thyme. Here's some lavender that they have growing. All their mints, look at this. Chewing gum mint, variegated apple mint, chocolate mint, curly mint, grapefruit mint, lime mint, orange mint, peppermint. So they have all different kinds of flavors of mint. That lime mint, grapefruit mint, I've never smelled grapefruit mint before. Oh, it really does smell like grapefruit. chocolate mint. I have this growing in my community garden. I really like that. And then chewing gum mint. Huh, yeah, that really, that's definitely more chewing gum-esque. I don't know how they get all those different kinds of smells and flavors in. Oregano, these are some type of plectranthus. Salvia, and they do leave this door open so people get to come in and experience a little bit more of the herbs, because this definitely is a type of greenhouse that you come in and you want to have an experience with some of these plants. And they have a bunch of plants down here, and they say these plants are not yet ready for sale. So thank you. So you can see that these are tiny plants. But if you wanted to start a little herb garden, they have a lot of natives and non-native species here, and you could just, I wish I could help you smell this across the way, because these are just so delightful. All right, let's go out to the next greenhouse and see what else we could see. So this is a heartleaf fern, and I get a lot of people who send me this fern and they say, what is it and how do I grow it and keep it happy? And this is a fern, so it does like to be a little bit more moist and humid. And I've found, at least for this one, that it is much better to grow in a terrarium than it is out in the open in your home. These are some aspleniums right here. Beautiful. I think one of the tours is actually happening right now.
Bananas, we have a lot of fruity bananas in here
So,
right now, guys, which is awesome.
blue star ferns, pretty easy to grow in the house. Doesn't need a tremendous amount of light. I am dealing with house mice right now, and I found that the house mice really like to eat this fern, which is unfortunate. But it's an easy fern to get your hands on at this point. So if the house mouse prevails and eats my fern, then I'll be able to get another one very easily. So we have the group on the other side actually touring from the event. Hi guys.
Thank you.
So this right here, if you take a close look on this, we saw a huge one in Thailand recently. This is Trevisia palmata, and this could grow into a pretty sizable tree. I have a little cuttings at the house, but you don't realize like how much of a prolific tree that it could become until you actually get a sense of it. And this one's already starting to get pretty big. Some green syngoniums. So these have kind of fallen out of favor because like people love syngoniums now that have a little bit more splash of color on, or if they're variegated. So the green syngoniums have fallen out of favor, but they are really prolific growers. So we saw one of those, if you remember, the Metanilla sedifolia, which is small leaves and small flowers. They weren't flowering, but this is what a larger Metanilla will look like. So you can see that they have much larger leaves. This one's about to go into flower, but they do get like, oh, here you could see one down here. It just has a little bit more of the flowers. So much more robust and larger as a Metanilla compared to some smaller ones. It's starting to get really tight in here. So this is why we've broken up groups to go into different groups, because when you're in these greenhouses, it could be like a little bit of a tight fit. All right, so we're gonna kind of try to make a beeline out of here because it's just a little bit too tight to film right now. All right, so this is like, I thought they were gonna save this for the last part, but I like that they're doing it kind of like in the middle of the day. So Byron's gonna be cutting out a musa and putting it to bed. And it kind of like has sprawled out. It has all these different suckers. And I think this is gonna be a really fun experience for everybody to see. And I actually haven't seen him do anything like this too. So you're gonna be witnessing it for the first time as well.
All right, we ready? So this is a Japanese fiber banana, and it is from Japan, high elevation, tolerates very, very cold soil for long periods of time. And it literally would not be hardy here in our climate unless we put a mulch over the top of it. So if we just left this bare out in the open, the plant will actually die during winter. Unless we had a really mild winter. We've had a few of those along the way. This particular stand has been here for about 15 years. And the center of it is where we wanted it, but because of the changing climate and the very mild winters that we've had, it's now spreading out. And a banana actually is a tulip bulb, with a pseudostem that comes out of the base, and then the reproduction is an offset that comes off of that makes another tulip bulb that comes out of the base. And over the years, this is starting to spread out. And normally what we would do is we'd mulch only a portion of it and let the winter kill it off, but the last few winters it hasn't happened. So we're gonna make a smaller mulch pile this year. So basically we wait until frost comes and takes the foliage off. We haven't had a frost this time of year, but usually by now we have. And then we have to cut this down. We cut the pseudostems off to about a foot above the ground, and then we put a mulch on it. And so it's pretty simple. The actual pseudostem itself is very, very soft. That's a big one. Anybody want to do it? Huge tree down. Go. There you go. Timber. That's it.
Such a good job.
Oh, you did 2 in 1. That was easy, huh?
All right, which one?
Take the big one.
The big one right there or the big one right there?
The big one right in the middle.
The one, there's this one in the
Yeah.
middle, okay. All right. Feels good.
Well, just a moment. Now what we do is we're going to cover this with lots of mulch. We'll take the leaves that we rake up from the lawn, we'll throw it on it. I always put hay on the top because leaves blow away. Hay seems to be more stable. And that pile will, when we get done, will be like this big. It's like an eyesore. It's a huge pile. But by the time winter is over, it settles down. These stems, if it's a cold winter, will actually die into the ground, but underneath is that tulip bulb. And as long as that doesn't freeze, it'll shoot out again. One other thing you have with this particular plant is when they get to be really old, there may be a bud down in there for the banana to fruit off of, and that bulb will not regrow. It would just, we've cut off everything, all its energy, it'll just sit there and waste away, and you think you've lost it. But basically on each one of these are side sprouts. You can't see them, they're under the ground, and those will come back up. Yeah. So generally what we do is we mulch it, and then I mulch it again, and I mulch it again, until, you know, it's really thick.
Is the mulch similar to like a compost pile, so it'll get really hot?
No,
Or no,
no,
okay.
It's just an insulation.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
How long has it been here?
About 15 years. Yeah. Yep. I had one at a house that I lived in, and I had it there for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And it was on the corner, so it was like spectacular. You know, you drive in the summertime. The people that bought it, I told them, I said, mulch it and you'll have that for years, and they didn't do it, and it was dead the next year.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, they weren't gardeners.
Thanks, Byron.
Yep.
So that was the cutting down of the Musa Baju. So this was a banana that had basically run amok. And so Byron had us do a participatory pruning and cutting. And so now he's going to be mulching this so that it comes back next year. But otherwise, they just had too mild of winter, so it was just expanding, expanding, expanding. And it was just a fun experience. And now everybody is going to be swapping groups. So some of them are going to be watching the pruning and propagation and the grafting demos. And the others are actually going to go for the tour. So we'll finish our tour of the greenhouses as well. Let's go into the potting house. All right, so this is their potting house. And wow, look at this begonia. This looks like a begonia maculata, but I'm not precisely certain if that is it. But this has the beautiful silver spots and the red undersides to this. And look at all the passifloras. So this is something that Byron said that he is very passionate about, all these passifloras. I've actually photographed a number of passifloras on my Instagram feed, and people are like, oh my God, what is that plant? And you could see how fabulous the flowers are. These are a little bit like kind of drab because they're photos and they've they're in the sun, so they're a little faded. So we'll see if we could actually find a passion flower somewhere around here. Nong Nook mine. So what's cool about this is that actually I went to Nong Nook Botanic Garden, tropical botanic garden in Thailand. It's actually named after the mother, the woman who actually started the tropical botanic garden, and this is named after her, and this is from Thailand. And I have this growing in my house. I actually got the Nong Nook vine from Logee's, and it is so big in foliage, but I haven't had it flower, but you could see how beautiful the flowers are. Byron said maybe I'm not giving it enough light, so I'm going to try to see what I can actually do in order to be able to get it to flower, because as you can see, they're quite spectacular. Oh, here's a passiflora. So come down here. There's one right here. Look how fabulous that is. Oh my God, look at that flower structure on that. This is a beautiful color too. I mean, it's really bright red. And they come in all different colors, purple. The ones that are native to the Northeast are a little bit more purple in color. Come back here, hibiscus flowers. These are quite large. I'm not used to having some of the hibiscus this large, but this one's in full bloom that you could see. People love growing these outdoors. Fabulous anthurium. And this is the ponderosa lemon. So some of that bread that was made earlier was using their ponderosa lemons. And Byron had mentioned that this has been growing here for about 119 years. It's just mind-blowing to me. These are small, he said, as far as lemons. Some years he gets lemons that are like this size, which is pretty impressive. I think the largest one might be up here somewhere. But you can see this is heavily pruned, so they actually cut this back, and that's how they actually take cuttings of this plant in order to be able to sell them to the public as well. So you might actually see some of the ponderosas maybe somewhere here. Some Juporteas right here, type of prayer plant. Some paper plants, papyrus. Farfugiums, which I think of these like that would be a good bedding plant, but actually they could, Byron had mentioned that these love high humidity and not a lot of sun. So, whether they'd be good indoor house plants, I mean, the fact that you need a little bit more high humidity is kind of like tough because a lot of people don't have humid homes. This is an Alocasia mycolitziana frydek. So this is a type of cultivar. I find these alocasias to be very difficult to grow in the home. I get spider mites all the time, so you have to have a pretty humid environment in order to be able to keep these free of spider mites. I find these to be tough. Ludisia discolor is one of the easier jewel orchids to grow indoors. This one also spreads a little bit more like the rhizomatous leaf, so it kind of can get pretty leggy and drop some of its leaves down here and kind of sprawl. So I find actually growing these a little bit more in a wider basin so they can sprawl out is actually a better way to grow those. Here's some more prayer plants. This is actually, I think, a type of Tenanthe. Has a little, I'm not sure what the species one of is on this one. And these are Calathea zebrinas. They're also now known as Juportea zebrinas. So a lot of the Calatheas got moved over into a new genus called Juportea. I love this one because it's just so nice to be able to touch. We have a much more extensive episode on prayer plant care, but these are super sensitive to any type of minerals or metals in the water. You can't have also chlorine, fluoride, anything like that in the water. So I generally give these a little bit more distilled or filtered water. Bougainvillea, these are quite beautiful. I actually just had somebody on Instagram send me a photo of some of these plants, and they said, "What is this plant?" And I was like, "Yeah, these are the ones that get the really colorful bracts, and they're quite a show stopper." He has several of these actually growing in his greenhouse. some more prayer plants. I'm not actually certain what kind of species these are, but they're growing under the bench again. And if you want to look what he has growing under the bench. So this looks like a type of Gesneriaceae, I'm not sure. This is a Sanchesia, which I had this growing. I think this might be a Sanchesia nobilis. Hard to grow. I had to really battle with thrips and spider mites and mealybugs on this one, so that was a little bit more challenging. And you can see he has a lot of inch plants, also known as Tradescantia, kind of growing under here. They really do kind of take over. But I love under the bench. Like, this is what I feel like it should look like. It shouldn't be really pruned and well weeded. Oh, Byron does a lot of hybrids, of his own hybrids with begonias. And these are some of the ones that he's brought out that he's now selling, which is so cool because it takes so long to be able to hybridize something. You get like a seed from one, seed from another, and you like you do a cross pollination with the plants. And when you cross pollinate them, you get all these different kinds of varieties, and you have to select which one is going to be the one that you sell, and that one might not actually hold the same color or the pattern, so you have to let it run for several seasons in order to be able to see whether that particular variety is going to be stable. Strongyloidin vine, I had a small one of these growing in my house. Unfortunately, it didn't survive, but it's not in flower, but you could see the flower is just Avatar-esque. It's very, very unusual. It's got this like kind of blue color, and it just hangs off of the plant, and it's pretty. It's a showstopper. So this plant seems to be very vigorous, but from what Byron has shared with me, he's like the plant has to be around this thick in order to be able to start to flower. So if you're getting something that's a small cutting, then it's going to be a slog. It's going to be a long time for it to actually be able to flower. This is a great example of musa, bananas. So this is not the same banana that he had growing outside that we just cut back, but this is a smaller banana, and these are the little suckers that come off the banana. And some of these, they specialize a little bit more in container plants, so some of these don't get too large, maybe 10 feet max, but you could actually grow a number of these in containers, bring them in from the outdoors as well. This particular one says it grows 3 feet in a container, so 3 feet is not that large. Have no smell, but typically, jasmine has smell, but this one has bigger flowers but no smell. This one, on the other hand, smells like circus peanuts. If anybody else out there knows what circus peanuts smell like, because I'm always like, that smells like circus peanuts, and everybody gives me this like glazed over look, and they're like, what is circus peanuts? They're like these little marshmallowy things, and it smells exactly like circus peanuts. So if you know what circus peanuts is, tell me in the comments below, because I feel like I'm the only one. These are pretty spectacular plants. It's known as taka, but the leaves are not really showstoppers. I mean, they're large, but they're not really showstoppers. It's their flowers that are really unusual, and these are like very goth-like. This one's the black taka flower, but they also have a white taka flower. I saw these growing as bedding plants in Singapore, and I don't even know who actually pollinates these flowers. I mean, they're just so unusual. I think that's why people would get them, because otherwise their leaves are, I would say, fairly unremarkable. Here's a great example of the ponderosa. This is the Meyer lemon, and this is the ponderosa lemon. So Logee specializes in a lot of citrus, a lot of container citrus, and so this is an example of the one that he has growing that he took a cutting of that's 119 years old. And these are the citrus limons. These are the Meyer lemons that people are also familiar with because they've become a popular culinary fruit. This plant is commonly known as a smoke bush. You see these, kind of outdoors, very large plantings, but it's a type of Euphorbia, which is something that I didn't originally know before when I first saw smoke bush. And you could see a little bit of the smaller inflorescences that they have here. So the groups are going to probably be ending their tours in the next 10 minutes, and then we're going to move to lunch from Heirloom and also a little bit of a Q&A with me and Byron and a book signing. Anyway, I'll just ask Byron a few questions to kind of stimulate conversation, and then if you guys have any questions for either of us, that would be great if you have them, and otherwise we'll let you kind of like enjoy and finish up.
You know, there's a world of nature and there's a world of man, and although they really are the same one, the consciousness of man lives in separation of that. And believe it or not, all of the environmental destruction and the pressure that's on our ecosystems is caused by that disconnection. So once you connect into nature and you really know nature and you feel nature and you know that you are nature, you have reverence for it. And that, you know, reverence has been lost as we've modernized our world. And, you know, basically most people, they live in a box, they go outside for a short period of time, they get into another box, which is not usually square, it's kind of long, and they drive and they get out and they go into another box, and we spend our whole lives away from that which is actually us and which is the vitality of creation.
Out of curiosity, I mean, Logee is one of the premier places that has some really interesting plants. What are some of the plants that you would like to see go into production, since we're here with the man himself and the team? So are there certain ones that you're really loving right now?
Variegated string of hearts.
Variegated string of hearts. More Hoyas.
We have that. It's so slow.
Variegated string of pearls. Yeah.
So slow.
So slow.
And Hoyas too. I mean,
yeah, okay.
Hoyas are.
Okay, speaking of variegated, we're going to do, like Laura Lynn just told me that we're going to do the drawing of the variegated Monstera, I guess. So pulling that out, yeah. Hopefully everybody put their raffle tickets in there.
Yeah, one sold on eBay for $934.
Oh my God.
And it was that big.
Oh my God.
So it's
Feels
almost
so sad.
$1,000. Whoever gets it, you're getting $1,000 today.
Now you can sell it on eBay and get a few more.
There's no way.
That's a big box.
Did everyone put in their ticket from their lunch? Did everyone put their ticket in? Okay.
All right, don't sleep on the bus, whoever wins this.
Yeah. You might want to call a Uber and get a ride home.
I know, exactly. Okay, okay. I can't rub down here too much because I could get a splinter from this box. All right. Wait, this is just this doesn't have anything on it. Oh, I see. Number 46. Who is that?
Whoa!
Wait, why the sad face?
I never win anything, so I put my number in. I'm so excited for someone else to get this.
You don't even know how to react to winning.
Oh, you are welcome. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Good
And
luck.
I am not selling this.
So it's 2:15 p.m. and we have just finished the book signing, and we are now going to move into more of a public event. So anybody who couldn't actually come to the event, the public could actually come. I don't even know if people are going to show up, but this concludes the field trip here at Logee's, and it's just been such a blast. Hopefully everybody had fun, and I hope you had fun as well.